Alright you guys, here's a quick deck profile for my plant deck. It's basically, it's mostly based on lights and darks, but the majority is still based on plant type and art type. There is no basic art type, so it's very flexible, and knowing with the new March ban list, a lot of the cards will end up coming back, like Spore with a lot of synchros for like Black Rose, or sometimes even power tool, or sometimes even ancient fairy dragon, who can easily just like destroy spells and give you the upper hand and get actually black garden, which is what we're going to be using in this deck. And so we're gonna get started. In this deck we're actually going to use a basic amount of just like plants, so that includes lawn fire and use this just search out Titanio, Gigaplant, which are your basic, pretty much the strongest ones. I would only recommend just using one Titanio, Princess Titanio Camellias, just because it's a pretty decent card, but sometimes it's just a dead draw. Gigaplant itself is a pretty much good searcher for like revive things from your deck, summon things from your hand or graveyard. Dandelion, cannot really say much, but that it's Dandelion. The card itself does multiple things. Even if it's discarded, any way that it's just sent to the graveyard, you pretty much just get 2 tokens, which can be used like for tributes for this like Titania special effect, which is if a card is targeted, just bam, just pop, destroy, and you get the 2 tokens along with it, and then use those 2 tokens along. So it just comes in really handy. And then sometimes there's also comes in with a combo where you're just like, you have a Gigaplant, so you can't really see it, glare is really pretty bad, but you just get Gigaplant, and Gigaplant itself is just like, when it's Gemini though, that's the thing, so you have to summon it the second time. So it's easier if just like Monster Reborn it, or one of those spells is called Miracle Fertilizer, which we'll also go into right now. And so you just like summon it, it's special, normal, then it gains the effect, special Titanium. Titanium can just like suicide itself to destroy cards. Next turn, bam, bring it again, and it just makes this really large loop. Botanical Line. Botanical Line is a 1600 monster with 2000 defense. You really can't see it pretty well. I'm not sure why it's not zooming in, but it's a 2000. It's basically what it does. It pretty much any plant that you have on the field gives it a boost of 300. Itself counts, so it's automatically just 1900, unless you're into those zombie type decks that just change it and it's only 16. What I usually like to do is just set it. Once it gets attacked, it's like, oh bam, like, I mean, come on, first turn you have 2000 defense monster, chances are they're gonna attack, boom bitch, like boom, you're just gonna get like a good someone gets like a big attack defense. I usually like to up it to 2, just because sometimes you never know what can happen, just like you end up with 2, you have like what, 19 and 19, so each one is gonna end up with 2200. Or sometimes just like to use it for like a good Xyz, a quick like Utopia or something. Neospatian, yeah, these cards are pretty weak, but their effects come in handy every once in a while. You really can't zoom into it, but it's pretty horrible for some reason. Anyway, so what this does is you get a light plant monster, they try to attack, they, depending on the effect, so let's say they attack, okay, they draw, bam, they draw a plant, I guess a monster, they just pretty much it's pretty much just the end of the battle phase. If it's a trap, then it goes to defense, and if it's an attack, then you can make it a direct attack. So basically it's just a small shield. I would actually recommend using a lot Marshmallow, but we're using Neospatian because it's a plant deck, and like a lot of the cards, or like a lot of the counters, or a lot of the spells that go along with it really will come in handy with these 2 cards. So I mean, it's easy, just Xyz for Zen mains or something. So it's just trying to get a lot of variables into like a lot of Xyz or a lot of synchros. This particular deck is just based mostly just on itself, or sometimes it's a lot of Xyz, but I'm basically just powering up just to get a pretty good light and dark evening. So on this deck we have 3 blue roses. Blue rose dragons are pretty much these 1600 monsters that if they're destroyed from the field, sent to graveyard, they automatically search, and you can pull out any monster, any plant type monster from your grave So that includes Gigaplant, you know, so that way then they end their phase, you know, second turn special, pull out Titania or Dandelion, whatever you need. So it's like, if it gets really drastic, you can just like get rid of it, pull out Dandelion, get 2 tokens. If you have Titania in your hand, tribute, and then you get it. Mostly what I like to do is just, if Luis just gets destroyed, then instant Titania, and pretty much the opponent's just gonna like end the attack, unless they have a really high monster, but chances are they're probably gonna go for the higher monster attack first. And if they do target it, well, you can just use its effect again and just destroy cards. So Blue Rose itself doesn't necessarily need to be destroyed by battle. It can be destroyed by card effect, so you can actually even use it to your own advantage. So what you can use is, you know, you can throw in can't seem to find my traps. You know, you can just torrential, you know, just set it, you know, your opponent sets, you know, just set it, your opponent attacks or summon something, bam, torrential tribute, you know, your own monster, pull out Titania, and they have no field. So it kind of leaves them vulnerable to use pretty much any attack. And it's actually pretty great against Bottomless, because Bottomless targets a card, so it can actually tribute itself instead of being banished. It just ends up being in the graveyard. So it's really nice because it's like it just recycles itself, and it just prevents from being sent to being banished, which you do not want to have happened. So then those are pretty much all the plants that you need for this deck. It's a pretty decent amount. Then we go into the more pretty much the non-reasonable why are they actually in here. We have 1 Prime Material and 1 Jinzo. Prime Material, pretty simple, just a good defender against like cards that destroy monsters. So it's pretty much like Titania, but in a better risk, in a better way. So discard with the Prime Material, just discard Titania, bam, in your graveyard, and you get that way you can easily search for it whenever you have Blue Rose or any other Monster Reborn or that kind of thing. So that's pretty much what done and said. Jinzo, anti-trap, that's all I have to say. So these are just 1 light and 1 dark, 6 levels, so you can just hex these for level 6. You can also use the tokens that, you know, use tribute Dandelion, get 2 mandatory tokens, you know, bam bam, tribute one of those tokens, you get Prime Material, or just tribute one of those tokens, you get, you know, Jinzo. So you pretty much don't really run out of anything. So now that we have those out of the way, Marshmallow, you know, pretty much same reason as Neospatian Glomoss. The only difference with this is that obviously you have set level 3 undestructible, so you can easily go into Zen mains if you have another, or pretty much just hold on to it until you really want to tribute for like a Jinzo or Prime Material. But I would actually just hold on to it until your opponent has, if your opponent is swarming with a really big field. Next up is Gale the Whirlwind. Pretty much 1 dark monster just set up, just easily half every monster that you have out there. 3,000, just, you know, half a monster, bam, Jinzo in there. You know, no traps can be activated, bam, attack, it's gone, you know. And then we get to Effect Veiler. Cannot really say much, but, you know, I wish I had 2 of them, but at the moment I only have 1. Effect Veiler's light, you know, negates any monster effects, you know, especially against like Barbados or like Plasma, or a lot of those new exes that just start like going really crazy with their effects. So this is really great just from hand to activate. Morphing Jar. You would ask, why Morphing Jar? Why do we need it? Reason for this being is that, you know, a lot of the times it's just that you have cards or like Titania, or you have, you know, Gigaplant just sitting around in your hand, and, you know, you don't want to tribute for it. It's just, you're just too damn lazy to like tribute for it, and you don't know your opponent can just like try to bottomless or something. So your opponent, what it is, it's always about psyching your opponent out. You know, your opponent has their strongest cards, you know, in their hand if they want to tribute, or they're waiting to pull something great. So a lot of the decks are just searchers. They're like adding cards to their hand because they want to pull out a good combo. So the best way to do that is to get rid of their hand. So with that being said, it's like, you know, all you have to do is just have your own like Titanium or Gigaplant just set up. Sometimes I just like to have one card in my hand like Titanium or just Gigaplant and just use this, so I just get rid of my own good card, you know, bam, their hands is gone, and you just end up with like a clean, good hand to start with. So usually that includes like a Blue Rose or like a Miracle Fertilizer, or sometimes just a card that can just easily as well bring it back. And then last but not least, we have one BLS. The whole deck is just built around just having lights and darks. So we have like Neospatian, that's light, Blue Rose, that's dark, bam, just these two that are just easy gone and going. Effective Fighter itself, you know, Gilded Whirlwind, we have Gentle Dark, you know, we have what else? I guess the majority of these just light and darks. So everything just pretty much builds up to this you know, BLS. You know, once you have it out there, I guess it's pretty much a game. A lot of chances are they're gonna try to negate its effects or banish it, or you know, so and so. But there's a lot of spells and traps. Like this deck is just built on good supported cards that are just based on trying to help BLS get out there in the field without getting destroyed. So we're gonna get into those real quick. Spells. For spells, we have Book of Moon, obviously. You know, just to set those monsters that want to attack, or sometimes you want to get around those effects. Dark Hole, self-explanatory. 2 Miracle Fertilizers, which are your pretty much monster reborns for plants. So the deal with this is that you use, it's a continuous spell, so you just use it, and this turn you can just special summon any plant, literally any plant, from your graveyard and summon it to the field. The only exception is that you cannot normal summon or set the same turn. So it's okay. So you can actually activate both of them at the same time. So it's like, okay, activate 1, activate 2. You can special summon, and you know, that's fine. You know, as long as you're not normal summoning or setting, you should be fine. So a lot of triggers, usually it's like, oh, I summon Gigaplant, and I use like, oh, double summon or something, and then you pull something great out, and you know, the only way that, you know, and what's great, it's pretty much like a you know, a Call of the Haunted, but the thing with it is that it's not chained to it. So even if you know, Miracle Fertilizer is gone, your monster's still on the field. So bam, bam, you know, Fertilizer doesn't really get rid of the monster. The only thing that it does is that if the monster's not destroyed, what's cool about this is that, you know, let's say I pull out, you know, my handy dandy Titanium, right? So she's on the field, and you know, my opponent doesn't get rid of it. The next turn, I can do the same thing. So now I can pull out whatever other monsters I want. So, you know, I can pull out, you know, Gigaplant, and you know, Fertilizer second effect, you know, second one, you know, then you could throw on a Dandelion and so forth. So basically you just end up looping a lot of cards forward and back. That's pretty much for those. Heavy Storm. Heavy Storm is one of those cards where you can kind of like make or break. So I added it on just because a lot of the traps aren't very like stable. They're stable, but they're not very like they're not on the field for too long. So I really wouldn't worry about like, oh man, my field is clogged up with just pure traps. So because I've run into times where it's just a lot of traps just like are on there and I just can't get rid of them. So what I ended up doing is just switching to a lot of quick play traps, because it's really fun to like just mess around with your opponents. Like, oh man, they think they have a trap, but you know, it's just a quick play, and even if they do like MST it, you know, the effect still goes through, even if quick play is pretty much like a setup trap. So you can just get through it and bam. So your spell and trap zone is usually like about like 1 or 2 cards at a time. So no big worries on it. Just activate them if need be. Then heavy storm it if you have nothing on there, and you know, I mean, if they have a dark bribery or counter against it, you know, it only works in your favor, because now you know what they're trying to hide something, like they're trying to protect something really hard, so you can just MST it or just get rid of it. Next 2 cards are Blackguard, and this is a really weird heart of the deck. So this card is really strange, because once it's on the field, any monster that's normal summoned or special summoned gets its attack halved. Once it hits the field, it's halved, no matter how strong it is. 3,000 attack goes down to 15. And the only way around it is if you set. So if I tribute and then set, the monster doesn't get affected because it's flip summon. It is not, you know, it's not normal summon or special summon. But along with, if a monster really is normal summoned, then what happens is that you're the person who summons it, the opponent gets a token. So if I summon, my opponent gets a token. And the token itself is 800 attack, which is pretty much equivalent to a 1600 monster, were it not for Black Garden. Which is pretty much, it pretty much discourages your opponent from like really summoning. So a lot of times, what I like to do is just summon a really high level monster, a really strong one, probably like 1900 at most, and then activate Black Garden. So then whatever they play is gonna be weaker than mine. And after that, then I mean, a lot of opponents, what they try to do is they're gonna try to get rid of it. It's just bait for like MST bait, literally. So, you know, I really don't mind if it's gone. You know, it only works in my favor. They're like, I have 2 of them, so it's like bam. They're just gonna try to get rid of it, or just try to kind of set. They're gonna get on the defensive from this, or get really, you know, up on this card. A hidden effect from this card is that depending how many monsters are sent, you have to send all face-up plants on the field that are equivalent to a monster's attack. So let's say I have 2 token, like 1 token, my opponent has 1 token. I can just like pop and destroy its own by its own effect, destroy it, and bring back a 1600 monster, which usually ends up being, you know, Botanical Lion, which has 1900 attack. You know, not only does it get rid of the token that your opponent has, it also gets rid of the token that you have, and you know, you're no longer stuck with like, you know, being your monster being halved. This actually works really great with Botanical Lion as well, because even though it's halved, so it's like at 16. But it's halved, and you're like, there's a bunch of like you end up with like so many tokens because your opponent keeps like summoning monsters like crazy. So all it's doing is just boosting this card up. You know, it's halved. It's 16. What is it, like 800? But you still get 300. So 1100. Then you get like 1400. Then you get like 1700. So it's still a really strong card. It just adds up. I've used this Botanical Lion. Really highly recommended card, especially after you swarm your field with just pure plants. This actually took down a Stardust, as actually taken down a lot of like high strong XZs, just because his attack reaches over 2500 or more. Next up, Lightning Vortex. Not much to say on that. Just discard a high level monster, let's say Titanio or Gigaplant. Wipe up the field. Shrink. Very fun card to use. I like to mess around with my opponents when they think like, oh, they activate Jinzo on me. The reason I started using these is because of Jinzo. Jinzo would really screw me over because my deck was really trap heavy. So what I ended up doing is just like setting a lot of shrink cards, or a lot of like you know, quick plays. So it's just like, okay, they attack, half the monster. You can't really recall the attack. Monster's half. So even if it's like at 3000, the highest it can go is like what, 1500. And if Black Garden's on there, gets even worse. So their monster is pretty much just gone. They're just running into like fire. Running into, I'm not even sure. They're just running into a wall. Next up, 2 MSTs. You know, have to do their thing. I would actually rather wait for something that your opponent uses, like a field spell, or something that they have continuous that, you know, you feel is going to be on there. A lot of opponents, once you use Heavy Storm, what I like to do is just use Heavy Storm. Have these set up. You know, if I know they're protecting something, then I know, oh, they're really hard into it, so they really want that card to be on the field, or, you know, prevent something. So just MST it. You know, there's no way that they're gonna, you know, go all out and go for a second try. So it's just pretty much gone. Swords, good for those face sounds. You know, especially against Marshmallons or those cards you really don't know what you're getting into. Card destruction, easy player. You know. Same thing as Morphing Jar. You don't know what your opponent has in their hands. A lot of chances are they like to add cards to their hands because they have something like they want to throw out. But if you card destruction it, you know that, you know, whatever it is that they had planned, it's gone. You know, yesterday I was in a duel with some guy who's playing an Exodia deck. Apparently, he had 3 pieces of it already. You know, I had my Morphing Jar set up. You know, it's like, okay, he wasn't attacking, and it's okay. You know, Exodia decks don't attack. So I was playing. It's like, you know, whatever it is, their cards are gone. So, you know, Morphing Jar card, you know, goes down, and it's it. They're actually just gone. Last spell is just Monster Reborn, just because You know, in case there's those cases where your opponent has your strongest monster, just throw out Titanio, or even when you actually successfully just summon BLS, just bring him back. Okay, and you know the last section are just traps. These traps aren't just that heavy; they're just here more for protection rather than like negation, destruction. There's Torrential, which is really chained really well with Blue Rose. You know, just bring out Titanio, Giga Plant. You know, pull out any other good plant you have, and it just prevents a lot of mayhem from happening. I have 2 Wabakus on there because you know a lot of times a lot of cards set end up being like MST'd, or a lot of the cards just end up MST'd. So what I like to do is just set them up, then whenever the opponent is like, oh, MST it, you know, Wabaku's on there, and Wabaku still activates. It doesn't negate it, so your monsters don't get attacked, so it just discourages them. Same thing with Threatening Roar. I actually like playing 3 of them, just because a lot of my cards, like, I really need to set up. This is also a big endorsement dodge decks that I like to run. But I'll actually try to do a deck profile on that, so it's like 3 Threatening Roar, you know, in case you're setting up for like a Dandelion, or you're trying to save up that small, you know, for that tribute for Jinzo or Prime Material. So just use it just in case, just to save them up. Or sometimes, you know, your field's blown up and you're left with nothing, but you know, when Battle Fated can't come in, you know, Threatening Roar is your person to go to, your card to go to. There are 2 specific counter traps that I like to use. These are called Polynosis, and these cards are used with plants. This card, what it does is whenever a plant, you know, whenever a monster would be summoned, special summoned, spell or trap card would be activated, pretty much just use tribute 1 plant and it's gone. Whatever it is, it gets negated and it's destroyed. And what's cool about it is that I like to use it with Dandelion, so it's like, you know, bam, Dandelion destroys it, you get 2 plant tokens. That's 1 plant token, and you know, that's the 2nd token. So let's tell, you know, in case there's 1 and 2, so you use 1, you know, Dandelion's gone, left with 2 tokens, they try to pull something dumb again, tribute that token again, and you're set. You're left with 1 token and 2 other cards are still gone. Pretty simple. I like using them mostly just with Dandelion or any other plant, so that's why I like to be plant heavy in this deck, mostly because you know, a lot of these other cards can't be tributed only because they're not plants. I like using Scrap Iron just in case for those backups, like, you know, just reusing, because a lot of times opponents will forget, so you're just on there. And last but not least are 2 of my favorite good counter traps. These are called Blackhorn Heaven. These cards are actually they're kind of like, they're not so great for the most part, but now that the upcoming, a lot of Xyz, a lot of special summoning cards are coming up, these are really good lifesavers. What these do is they negate special summonings and destroy the cards. So this includes, you know, like, oh, Xyz summons, bam, you know, Xyz is gone. Synchro, Xyz is gone. BLS, even, you know, a lot of cards that special summon themselves are gone. They're all gone. And what's great of all, it's, you know, it's free. They're free of cost. There is no actual cost in here. I really can't focus my camera into it, but it says when your opponent would special summon a monster, they get the special summon, and if you do, destroy it. The only thing around it is that if it's like, it doesn't go around a lot of cards that search themselves. So I just like using these to protect myself against any any good Xyz or any good big plays that my opponents like to do. So it just gets rid of them, and then they're pretty much useless. But in case they try to like solemn that whatever card I'm playing, I just like to use Polynosis and just counter that, so they still play life points, and I'm pretty much home free, getting rid of that whatever card they're trying to pull off. And I think that's it for the main deck. For side deck, this deck was actually originally built to be played for a lot of synchroing, but mostly I don't really use any extra decks, just like a lot of tokens that I like to play out. Every now and then I used to like playing I like to substitute in Coordinate Metals or Copy Plant, which are just used to like ordinary plant cards. Actually don't have them with me right now, but you should check them out in case you want to like go all out on synchros. I know right now a lot of people are gonna start adding Spore back into their cards, and this deck is gonna go a lot higher. now that that spore is gonna go back up, so you can just synchro from Graver. So you have Archfiend, to get rid of those defense monsters like not Dandelion or Marshmallow, Spirit Reaper. Synchros. This is one of my favorite synchros. Queen of Thorns, level 6. It's a light, so it helps out with those. For that BLS summon. If your opponent special normal or special summons from their hand, they lose 1,000 if it's not a plant. So that's pretty much a big deal if you want to like pull out a card. So that really sucks. Or quizzes in case you want to pierce damage to those cards and just like mess around with your opponent. You really can't see this, but this is Black Rose Dragon. Close enough. I like using 2 of them, but I think I saved just one. This one's good enough for now, especially because a lot of the deck isn't based on synchros. There's also Ancient Fairy Dragon for in case you have those opponents who like to run their field spells. Like I know a lot of the fairy what are they called? I'm not even sure what they're called, but they have the ones that with the mystical shine balls. Anywho, but those light decks, dark roll decks, like to use their field spells too. I know a lot of the Amazon cards have their own field spells too, so this is starting a good counter. It 3,000 defense. I actually did not realize that. I feel pretty stupid for not knowing that. 3,000 defense, bam. And this deck really doesn't exist yet completely. I don't have many, but the only one I really would recommend is Zenmain's. Zenmain's, pretty much lifesaver. It pretty much just destroys anything on the field, unless they have a Stardust or they negate its effect. But even then, it's still like a good barrier, better than Gotchi, I guess. But that's pretty much it. That's all I have, you guys. Let me know if you have any comments or any other better suggestions on what cards I should add. The new upcoming format is coming up next month, so I'm not sure what actually is going to happen. So let me know if there's any other suggestions or any other better plays that you guys think could be out there, because I'm open to suggestions. So just let me know and comment, and thanks, you guys.